Hi, and welcome to Arcteq's Wednesday webinars. I'm Nico Muotio, and I'm working in the support team. Today, we're going to have a look at how to configure mimics in the AQ-250 series units. Some of the basic features include adding text, measurements, and images from a pre-made library, but if the library doesn't have what you need, you can add your own images as .png files. You can set up a status indication for various uses like circuit breakers or alarms, set up control for circuit breakers or other physical objects, and then also set up virtual switches to control logic of the relays, which means changing the setting groups, blocking protection functions from tripping, or other functions like that. Other advanced or unique features are using up to 5 separate unique mimics in one unit, or saving mimics into the unit's AQS configuration file, which includes all of the other features like protection, communication, measurement, and other settings like that. Or then you can save it into a separate AQ-MC file. Measurement bar to visualize measurement values, and rotating and scaling the size of any texts and images, or use logic programming to change the color of text displayed, or image displayed, depending on the situation of all the different signals that the relay is measuring, generating, or otherwise supervising. So these are some of the things that we're going to go through today. There are some other things also that don't fit into this list. So let's get into it. Accessing the Mimic editor. So when the configuration file is open, the Mimic editor can be accessed from Tools and Mimic editor. So let's do just that. I actually have it open already, but we can take Tools and AQ-250 Mimic editor. So here we are, and I already have something in here. I'm going to just take a new, and now we can get started. So items are the basic building block of a mimic. Into an item you can add text, images, or both. So to add an item to a mimic, you will have to right click on the mimic, and there you have add item selection. So now we have this item over here. Currently it's empty, but if we go here to from library, we can choose from this pre-made library any kind of symbol that we might need, and we could do things like we could start with selecting this T down line, and here we have it. So now we can move it around by just dragging it with the mouse, and as you can see, it's kind of going in this really blocky way, and this is because we have this use grid in use. And we can adjust the size of the grid. If I divide that 48 with 2, I will get a little bit smaller increments, or you can add whatever you want there. Or if you want to move the items freely, you just disable the grid and then just move it freely. But then it might be a little bit difficult to align some of the items together, as you might see here. Requires a lot of precision, but if I take the grid into use, it becomes much easier to move things around. Now that I have 2 items here, I can choose both of them by just dragging like this, and then they just move around together nicely, just like that. So if there's some image that we need but we don't have in the library, let's add another item. And then instead of going to from library, we go to add image. And I actually have here a couple of pictures on the desktop. I have motor green. So now we have that in the item. And then I can also add another image into the same item. So I will take motor red this time. So now we have motor red and motor green here in the same item. And because now this motor green is at the top of the list, that will always be shown by default. And motor red is unfortunately behind this green motor image. But I would like to show it when motor's temperature is normal and motor red when the temperature is high. I could then add an image condition by choosing an image from the item and then click add image condition. So now here we have a list of logical outputs, logical inputs, and other signals like that. But we don't have what we need here, so we will have to go to logic editor and connect something into a logical output. So tools and logic editor, and there let's just make a new logic clear and then add a logic. So now let's just make a simple logic by double clicking on the logic and then click input. Choose input and then OK. We will add a connect gate and then an output gate, and then just put the wires together through like that. And then to the end, we take some free logical output like that. So now whatever signal we connect to this input, it is directly connected to logical output 10 as well. And then we can use it in the mimic editor to change the visibility of the red and green motor. So let's go here and we could take, well, here we have temperature high. Now that one is controlling this logical output 10. Let's save the logic, go to tools and mimic editor again. And now we take this item and take motor red, and it is visible when logical output 10 equals to 1. So now we have that one displayed only when logical output 10 equals to 1, which is controlled by the signal that we connected in the logic editor. Then we do the same for motor green, add image condition, take logical output 10, but here we will just have it be logical output 10 equals to 0, and then we have green shown when logical output 10 is 0, and motor red when logical output 10 is 1. So pretty simple, right? Um, you can also add more than one image condition to images. If more than one is added, then all of the added image conditions have to be met for the image to be shown. And you can add as many image conditions as you need for this, for the image that you have selected. So, resizing images. You can resize images by selecting an item and then using these buttons here next to resize all to resize the image. But now, when resize all is disabled, only the selected image will be resized. So you will see that they are now different, have a different size, but let's manually put that one to be also 179, 179. And then if I select resize all, then I will be able to resize both of the images at the same time. So now that we have this motor image here, we can also turn this into kind of a virtual button. So if I choose the item and then click toggle, I can choose one of the logical inputs or the programmable switches to be controlled by this image. So now that we have logical input 1 selected, and if we would use this mimic in the relay, we could press Control to select this image in the mimic, and then press 0 or 1 to set that logical input to 0 and 1. And if this would be connected to this logical input would be connected to some setting group selection or blocking protection functions, it could be done with this mimic image over here. Then there is also control object, so you can control breakers, circuit breakers and disconnectors and other physical objects like that. But I would say that it's easier to use the symbols that we have made in the library. So we have the basic IEC symbols and IEC symbols with background, and then also ANSI symbols. So those are maybe a little bit easier to use. So every item can be rotated with this rotation field over here. So if we wanted to flip this on its side, we can set 90 degrees there. And then we would be able to make this kind of a corner if needed. Like so. Or turn it the other way with 270 degrees, 180, or just turn it into some other angle like that. So moving on to adding text. You can add text in the same way as you would with images. So you add an item and then instead of adding an image, we add text over here. So now we have a text field in here, and we can edit that in here. So if I write some sample text like this, and it will appear in here as well. And this text font size can be increased or decreased with this box over here. Let's put 16 for that. And then here at the bottom right, we have two buttons. The first one can be used for setting the color for this text. So we have a selection of basic colors, or then we have this gradient where we can choose the color freely. Pick a screen color, so we could choose the color of this motor here, like that. Or then we can adjust the red, green, and blue colors. Click OK, and then we have a green text. But if I go back to that same editor, there, if I change alpha channel to something less than 255, let's put something like 100, like that. And as you see, I'm gonna take the grid away, like that. And as you see, it makes the text a little bit transparent. So you can use that in case you need to make it transparent. And then finally, we have the background color. But by default, there is no background color. And if you want to remove it, we again use alpha channel to make it completely transparent by setting it to 0. Okay. Text can be rotated just like images, and it can have text conditions just like images can. So we could make some text to accompany this motor here. We give this text something like temperature normal. Add text. So now we have two texts here, and temperature high. So now we have green temperature normal. We could maybe put that back to normal 12 and let that be 12 and change the color of this text into red. So now we have green and red texts in this item. And then we could do the same trick we did for the image, that we take logical output and logical, the temperature high text is shown when logical output 10 is 1. Temperature normal is shown. Let's add the text condition and choose the logical output 10 again. Temperature normal is 0. Then this text is shown. So now both of this image and the text are following the same type of logic, and it will flip between the two depending on the status of this signal here. Let's go back to Mimic Editor. And we could have also done the same thing by having the text in the same with this item. So if I remove this item, I select this image and then add text to it, temp normal, and add text temp high. But now it's there in the top right corner. I can move it with these two numbers here. And now I put something like 150 and I think 30. Yeah, that puts it in the correct spot. I do the same trick for the other text, put 155 and 30. So now with these settings, the text and the image go together in the same item. And now that I have made this item, if I feel like I'm going to be using this in future projects, I can add it to library with this button. And now I have it right here. So if I ever make a completely new mimic, I can add an item and then click from library, and there I have this item. And I can use it again. So to add measurements, again, right click, but you will click add measurements instead. And now to this block, let's put the grid a bit bigger again. Now with this item selected, I get to add lines to that block with this plus symbol. And now I have 4 lines here, and I could choose things like the phase currents, like so, and then we could take something like the 3-phase power. Let's see. Ah, yes, there it is. 3-phase apparent power. Or let's take active power in megawatts. Like that. And then I can add a prefix to each of these. So I'm just going to put simple IL1, IL2, IL3, and P. Yeah. So just like with text, I can increase or decrease font size, change the text color. Let's put it back to white, or add a background color. But let's put it back to transparent, and also add measurement conditions. So these measurements are only shown when the conditions set here are met. And here is something that we have added quite recently, which is a measurement bar. To add a measurement bar, you right click and then add measurement bar. Then you choose some measurement, so we could take 3-phase active power again. Then add some prefix to that. So we will have then the prefix, and the value, actual value would be shown here, and then we would see the value on a scale from 0 to 100. But if we have some smaller network than smaller than 100 megawatt network, we could put something like 0 to 25 as an example. And just like with text, we can change the font size, the font color, background color, but then there's also the bar color option, which changes the color over here. Bar width and height defines that what is the height and width of the bar in pixels. So now we have 400 pixel wide bar, and if we wanted to, we could make this smaller or thicker like that, but let's just keep it at 20 and 100 like that. So this could help with visualizing the measurement value a little bit better than just having the values themselves. And just like with measurements and text and so on, you have the measurement conditions to add or remove those from being seen. So when we have several items in the mimic, sometimes they might be on top of each other. So if I would take, for example, a couple of images. So here I have 3 separate items, and they are stacked on top of each other. In case I wanted to have this image 2 above this image 3, I can choose this image 2, which in this case happens to be item 2. I will right click that and click move up. So now that it is at the top of the list, it is on top of image 1 and image 3, which are item 3 and item 1. But if I wanted this image 2 to be behind these image 1 and 3, I can click move to bottom, and now they are behind. Now it is behind image 1 and image 3. So AQ-250 series relays support up to 5 separate mimics. To do this, first we need to go to Tools and Carousel Designer. And here we have 3 pages. In page 1 we have Mimic, page 2 we have Events, and page 3 we have LEDs. Now if we wanted more than one mimic, we can add a page, and to this page we add a view with this plus sign, and we choose mimic 2, and we will keep repeating this. Add page, select the view, click on the plus sign, and keep choosing the mimics. So let's just add 3 this time. And now we save this carousel design. If we were connected to a relay, I can click on the send to relay, and this design is sent to the relay immediately. But now it is just saved to this configuration file. So now if I save this mimic, click on the save button, and this mimic 1 is selected. This mimic that we are looking at here is saved into Mimic slot 1. But if we wanted to make something new into Mimic 2, we can make the additions, or we could actually just make a new one, add a couple of items, just add a couple of items to get some kind of nice picture like that. Let's add one more, a vertical line. Okay, that's enough for now. And now if I wanted to save this to Mimic slot 2, I will select that one from the drop-down box and click Save. So now I have this view in the Mimic slot 2, and if I wanted to go back to Mimic 1, I would select it from the drop-down box and then click Reload, and we get back to Mimic 1. And if we want to go back to Mimic 2, we choose it from the drop-down box and then click Reload again. So basically, you choose the Mimic and then you choose the action if you want to reload or if you want to save something into that selected slot. And then all of these mimics can be saved into a separate file. So now if I want to save this view into a separate file, I click Save As and give it a name. And now I would be able to access it in any configuration file by going to the Mimic editor and click Open, and there it is. But now with that, I only have this Mimic 2. So if I want to also keep this Mimic 1, I go to that Mimic and then repeat the process. So that was all that I wanted to show you today. Thank you for watching and have a good day.